Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew McNeil. I'm joined tonight with my good friend Jimmy McKenna, and this is the MC Squared podcast. We have a jam-packed show for you today.
Yes, we do. Let's go.
All right. Well, welcome back. Jimmy, I think the last podcast that we had, we talked about we were going to be a lot more regular. We were gonna buckle down and we were gonna kick out the podcast, and then I think just life happened. We last week I was gone with the flu. It was not very fun, and I think Andrea has had a birthday. You had a birthday. Your son had a birthday.
My daughter had a birthday.
Oh my gosh! So,
and we all had the sickness through the whole family. So.
Yeah. So and you know what? It's really going around. The sickness this year.
Oh yeah.
Because you work at the hospital, so you would know more than most.
My goodness, it's crazy at the hospital.
Is it more than usual?
January, February are always
heavy.
Yes, always heavy. Mainly due to the weather and just like viruses. But this year has been a little bit different. I think that I don't know if more people are coming to the hospital, or honestly, I think what the biggest part is just there's just so many like chronically sick people with like other what we call comorbidities, like heart problems, and diabetes, and all that. And then, I mean, it sucked for us, but it's for them, it's really bad. And so I think that brings them in, and then it throws everything off.
Yeah.
You know, if they're on a bunch of medications, it throws it off. And so, yeah, we were real busy. I actually put up that tent outside.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff going around, like that we had a TB outbreak. That did not happen, okay? I would know, a respiratory therapist, I would know if there was TB. There was not TB. There was something in Kansas with TB.
Yeah.
I know there's like maybe one person in this area, one or two that do.
Yeah.
But they're pretty, we always have a couple people with TB. Honestly, a lot of TB comes from people who come from overseas because sometimes they just bring those things with them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's something that kind of hides in their lungs. And we didn't have that. That reason that tent was put up was because we had so many people in our waiting room. It was pouring over into the main level of the hospital, and they were like, what do we do now? And so they put the tent up, and they actually used it like a triage area. So they
panicked people.
It did. Actually took the numbers down the next day.
Yeah, I bet it did. Oh, we're all gonna die.
You don't like to scare people, but I remember when they opened it, there's like 8 beds in there, and they would just take them out of that room. They had it heated in there and kind of climate controlled. They put people in there, and it's better than sitting on the floor or in a metal chair.
Yeah,
and at least you sit on a cot. So anyway, it's still there. It's not being used, but it's just been a real crazy year with sickness.
It has.
This January and February, we're seeing a little bit of improvement. We used, at one time, we were using almost, not all of them, but nearly all of our ventilators.
Oh, that's
just
crazy.
From sick people. Yeah,
that's
so,
crazy.
I don't know. It seems to be waning a bit, which is good.
Yeah.
But
it should. Almost everybody's had it. So.
Yeah, once you get it, but, it's funny. A lot of people, they test for a lot of different things. And there's a lot of flu going around, and people testing positive for flu. And
I think that's what I had. I generally avoid the doctor if at all possible. I got a fever. I couldn't get it to break. And that was it. That was mostly it. I mean, there was nothing else, thankfully. But I was out for 4 or 5 days before my brain could start to think again.
Isn't that crazy?
It is really wild.
Yeah. So anyway.
I was hoping I didn't, send emails to anybody that made no sense.
Garbled emails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if it was the middle of the summer and then people were out from work, they would think you're calling in slick. But
right.
there was really nothing to do besides lay on a couch.
No reason.
Or even to go outside. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we had the last podcast was before the inauguration. Of Donald Trump, and it's just been, I wrote a small little, 4 or 5 paragraph observation, mostly because we hadn't had our podcast. I thought I was going to say something people are going to think I'm dead. But it's just been an amazing 3 or 4 weeks watching what's happening. And I don't know, Jimmy, if I know I mean, I know folks my age and older understand what we're seeing, but I'm not sure if the younger generation understands how big what is happening really is. I mean, I've been hearing since I've been involved in politics. I've been hearing since I was a young kid about the national debt, about trying to get that under control, and if we didn't, we were headed for a disaster. America was headed for disaster. I've heard candidate after candidate campaign on whatever, reforming, Social Security, getting it solvent so we're not losing, so it doesn't go bankrupt for previous, for subsequent generations. I mean, all of these reforms, getting a balanced budget, all of these things that matter, and nothing's ever happened.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing has ever, and I don't care who the president was, I don't care what the party, nothing has ever moved that dial other than more spending, more deficits, budgets out of control, and Elon's gone in there. And not just Elon, but tonight, Kash Patel was just confirmed as director of the FBI. And to me, he's the cherry on top. I mean, Trump has gotten literally every nominee, other than obviously Matt Gaetz, who I don't even know if that was a serious nomination, because it was almost like it was a test, a trial balloon, But other than that, it's just been phenomenal, and we are seeing these things actually take place. What Elon's doing inside with Doge, and just exposing the fraud, the absolute ridiculous. It's criminal, actually, what they've been doing with our tax dollars, which we all suspected.
It makes sense, right?
It's phenomenal. It's generational.
I mean, okay, so this is my question to this is previous administrations would have had to have seen some part of this, or were they just not leadership worthy enough to start looking into this and say, or does it take somebody with a mind, and with Trump's ability to be like, okay, just take a look at this, and I trust what you're gonna, what your assessment on this, because he, being a business leader of a massive company, he has to trust those people around him, and trust their opinion. And so, do you think that this has ever been looked at before with so many years and administrations over and over? I mean, why have we never talked about this mine that's kept all these all these paper documents and all the people that work there? It's like, okay, the government works for us, so why don't we know this? It should be excuse me, in tandem. So we don't I don't know why we didn't know about this stuff yet.
Yeah.
There's no reason there was really not a big reason to keep it from us.
Right.
Other than they're just really embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
But why haven't somebody tried to fix it?
Right.
The digitization of everything. Right. And then they go in and find this mine, and I'm sure that they're just, the people that are working with it, they're just laughing like, are you serious?
Well, what was the funniest was, so Trump offered federal employees an early retirement. I think it's an 8-month salary for them to basically retire, and up to $60,000 took him up on his offer, which is fantastic. But then the news comes out that they can only process 10,000 of them at a time because of that stupid mine. That's where everything has to go, and you're like,
I think there were like 600 people working there. Yeah,
what is happening? I think it's twofold. I think it's actually threefold. Okay, so it's number one, at the head of the ticket with Donald Trump, you have a businessman. And this is a businessman's mindset going in. And Elon, too. Yeah. Even though Elon's an inventor and scientific and computer, he's at the forefront, a CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, he helped found PayPal. I mean, this guy is he's excellent. Obviously, CEO of Tesla. And just, so it's a business mentality, which, Mr. Wonderful?
No.
Shark Tank?
Oh yeah,
Mr. Warner, and he's just like he's like cheering them on. Same thing. Cut. Go in there, slash, and slash and burn. It's what Elon did with Twitter, now X. He went out and fired 80% of the workforce, and what do you know? It still worked great.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is the kind of thing that's going on right now. So you've got at the top, you've got a businessman, and the second thing is that you had this businessman has spent the last 4 years trying to keep himself out of prison, facing assassination attempts, a constant effort by this organization that he's now the head of to bury him and his family, and violate his constitutional rights, violate every statute and precedent that you can think of that we've had with presidents and former presidents and political opponents and all of these things. These folks for the last 4 years ran roughshod over the Constitution and over those precedents.
Yeah.
So you've got him fired up and fine-tuned focus of what's okay. We said we were draining the swamp before. Nothing happened that was draining the swamp. Now we're draining the swamp. And I think the third thing is you're bringing in, with Elon Musk, a genius in the technological sense of it, and he's bringing in a team of geniuses, and they've cracked the code. They've gone, okay, we don't know. It's too big. Elon is too big. Okay, well, let's go to the Treasury and let's find out where the money's going.
Yeah.
So let's track these payments, and then we'll tell you what's happening. And that's what's happened. And so that's where we learned a lot of this stuff. He's just basically gotten at the back end of the Treasury and gone through line by line, and these 20 or 30 or 40 geniuses that he's got. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And they are
what about
finding
the Social Security checks?
Oh yeah, it's outrageous. Somebody 350 years old.
Yeah, they said that was Mitch McConnell.
Which he's not going to run for re-election. He just announced that today. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
No, they got. I mean, tons and tons of people over 200 years old. A ton of people over 150 years old. I mean, just fraud.
Man, who's cashing those checks? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, there should
Somebody
be a paper trail.
Yeah.
Going to somebody cashing this check
Somebody
somewhere.
needs to go to jail.
Yeah. I mean, they've been receiving these checks for so long.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I don't know. Do you think it's an American citizen, or do you think it's?
Well, we have no way. I mean, they're going to find out, but we have.
Do you think it's a politician?
Well, so here's the thing that's crazy. So George Soros, everybody knows who George Soros is. Left-wing nut. He's banned in 7 or 8 countries for economic terrorism. He's a former Nazi, and he's Jewish. So that's really bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, he turned his own people in for the Nazis as a Nazi youth. But anyway, and he has no regret of that, by the way, which is really bizarre. But he's kind of behind the scenes. He's got all of these umbrella organizations. They're all liberal. They're all unified in causes. They all seem like they're organic and grassroots, but they're not. They're all under his umbrella, and they're all fomenting this kind of a Marxist influence in the country. Well, when we've all known about it, it's a big deal. Well, come to find out, the guy who's a billionaire is not actually using his money. He's using our money. Mm-hmm. And USAID and all of these organizations within the U.S. government taking taxpayer dollars and helping to fund basically undermining the citizenry. So we've been paying for our own demise. It's outrageous. Yeah, honestly, there needs to be people going to prison after this is all finished.
It's been a big 8 weeks.
It's been huge.
Well, so much stuff has been uncovered.
Yeah.
And it's, can they keep this pace up?
Well, I think what's really amazing, I mean, the scope of all of it is tremendous because Trump's nominees, the first time around, I mean, there's no comparison between Trump 45 and Trump 47. There's no comparison. His nominees are locked in. The vision for all of them, they're all unified. I don't know if you remember last time, but remember Trump's first Secretary of State, the ExxonMobil guy who was the CEO guy.
No, I don't remember.
Rex somebody, I feel like was his name. He was awful. And there were so many that were just... I remember his Attorney General, the senator out of Alabama, and the very first thing he does is recuse himself from the Russia investigation and allowed it to go forward, which hamstrung Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
I mean, these people were awful. Nobody was on Trump's page. They all thought he was a novelty. Nobody was, even if they liked Trump, they weren't very good. They weren't loyal. And they didn't have the America First understanding of what we're trying to do. They all of his nominees in this second term, they all do. They're all locked and loaded, and they are all pushing. So what's awesome is they're pushing on so many fronts. The left, what are you going to do? You're going to target Homeland Security? Well, the FBI is going, and so is the Department of Justice. Well, I mean, you get your news media all worked up and fired up and going after them, and the Department of Defense is cutting you out from underneath. You know, all of these things that are happening. It's full press, and I don't see it stopping. I do think already they're talking about trying to lock this in for subsequent administration. So. Because it's great and we could have a great 4 years. But after that, we're going to get another president. It could be a good one. It could not be. It could be someone who undoes a lot of this stuff. So the Congress is already talking about trying to codify as much of these executive orders as they possibly can so that it's really hard to undo. And then, you know, we've got to see, if we really want to see the full shift, sustainable shift, then we're going to need to follow Trump up with somebody who's just phenomenal for the next 8 years. And
yeah.
So, but I mean, that's another battle and a fight for another day. In the meantime, it's just awesome to see. I mean, Politico, which is so funny. Politico's got to shut down. They're almost completely taxpayer funded.
Yeah.
And they acted like they were an independent news organization. Of course, always pushing left-wing politics, always, you know, anti-Trump, and it was taxpayer
we were
funds. Yes,
yeah,
to the tune of millions of dollars.
Do you think that Trump 45, his picks were chosen, or his picks were influenced by the Republican Party?
Yeah, so
by kind of the deep, and they were like, okay, we think this person would be the best, or we think this person would be, and now his picks are influenced by
himself.
Yeah, and the knowledge that he has.
Well, I think Trump went through hell and back.
Yeah.
And I think the people who stuck with him through thick and through thin, he knows they're tested and they're true.
Yeah.
And those are the people that he's put into place.
It'd be the same way if you had if you had a business.
Oh yeah.
Those are the people that you surround yourself with. It's not yes men, yes women.
No.
It's people that you know you can trust.
Right.
And even if you're and even if you're a little bit off on this, you've got that trust with them that they could tell you. Now I think that we're off in this area, and that's one of the reasons I like the RFK pick, because technically he was from a different angle, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But he's
same
somebody.
With Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah,
same thing.
Oh, same thing.
Two different parties. Yeah.
Yes, two different parties. So it's very interesting, the diversity of his team, and I think that's how you can tell a good leader is by how diverse their team is, and that's really what he has.
Yet still having the singleness of vision.
Yes,
because you can have diversity, but if they've all got their own agendas, then you're gonna be defeated. You're gonna fall. They are all singly focused, especially in the area like RFK Jr. in the Health and Human Services in the position that he's in. He is 100% focused on the agenda that he wants. It's his heart, but it's what it aligns with Trump. And Trump's like, yes, you go for it. I'm putting you in the position. You run. And that's what we're seeing in all of these. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, the minute she protested, she stood up for Bernie Sanders. Okay? This was a while back. Stood up for Bernie Sanders and bucked the Democrat establishment. And then that week found out she was put on a no-fly list and a terrorist watch list by the deep state. So that is, so he finds her and he puts her in position to now be the boss of those people who put her on the watch list.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that's happening all across. Kash Patel, same thing. They are going to gut the deep state, and it's been happening even from before the inauguration. And I love it. I mean, I mean, people are crying rivers. Oh my gosh, what's interesting to me is who in the world would ever be upset about finding out fraud, Jimmy, and balancing your budget and saving money, taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
And yet people are screaming to
Yeah.
high heaven.
I mean, it's like anybody else who has a household who's trying to
Right.
manage your own finances. I mean, that's why you get to download the thing on your phone that looks at all the subscriptions that are sucking money out of your
Right,
checking account.
right.
And you get on there and you're like, wow, I just saved this amount of money. That's a good thing. This is essentially what they're doing.
Exactly.
Is where's all
Exactly.
where's all
Right.
the taxpayers' money going?
yeah.
It's almost essentially the same thing.
It is. So let me ask you, because this is kind of the debate. Trump threw out there a tax rebate based on what they believe Doge is going to do in the total of probably, I mean, somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 per taxpayer.
Wow.
So Trump's putting that out there. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, came out and he said something I thought was really good, which is, it's something if I'm praising Mike Johnson, because I'm not a huge fan of his. But he was at CPAC today, and he said, you know what? We're $36 trillion in debt. We have huge budget deficits. And I just think if we're finding fraud and we're finding mismanagement, that we could pay the credit card down a little bit. And I'm always for tax cuts. I think there needs to be a permanent tax cut. I don't like rebate checks. Somehow I don't like that. Just cut the taxes moving forward. But I do think if they find a ton of money, I think there needs to be some payment on the national debt. Could you imagine the feeling? I mean, if they were able to pay $800 billion,
Yeah.
close to $1 trillion. I mean, just to see that debt clock stop
The debt clock's just constantly
and
running.
start to go backwards a little would be amazing.
Yeah.
And would give some hope. I mean, otherwise we're going to be financially insolvent eventually. I
Yeah.
mean, that's where we're headed. So I'm not a huge fan.
You're not a
the
fan of
$5,000.
the $5,000 check.
I'm not. I mean, obviously, it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Everybody's thrilled. But honestly, for me personally, that's kind of the reason we had the inflation so high during
Yeah.
COVID. Anyway, they were handing out checks like crazy, just pouring federal dollars out there, and that actually is what caused inflation.
Yeah.
It's printed money. It's not.
Yeah.
We don't have it. We're in huge debt, and so I think it would be really exciting to see them save money. Like you said, get rid of all the subscriptions, but also massive fraud, and take that money and put it on the debt.
Yeah, and
Start to get your house in order.
Well, and then tax cuts are something that somebody could give you a bonus check for whatever.
Right.
But if you get an incremental raise,
Right.
then that in the
That's
long
right.
term, that's really what pays off.
What do you want? You want that one-time bonus,
Man,
or do you want your future
that
earnings?
mindset's really hard to change with people, though.
It is
having
It is.
that quick
Give me a
cash.
check. Yep.
Yeah, and so my thought was that whole initial talk about that was kind of thumbing his nose at the Democrats.
Well, I'm sure it is.
I mean, just to be like, oh yeah, no, well, we're gonna find this money and then we're gonna give it back to the
Right.
taxpayer.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not. I guess I really don't have a thought either way. I do think that a tax cut is going to put it back in your pocket.
Exactly.
It's just not going to be in a large sum.
And if it's permanent, the nice thing about a permanent tax cut is that the economy, a temporary tax cut is almost worse than no tax cut at all, because what needs to happen for businesses to invest is they need to know what the future financial atmosphere is going to be. So if they know that capital gains is getting cut, if they know that that income taxes top rates are getting slashed or cut and are permanent, not sunset like George W. Bush did and all. I don't understand. That was the weirdest thing we ever did, was the sunsetting the tax cuts. So whatever. Anyway, you lock it in, then people with money will invest because they are confident that 10 years down the road, they know what their tax status is going to be. They know that if they're investing millions of dollars, their capital gains is not going to be that taxable 10 years down the road, as opposed to, am I making sense?
Yeah.
So if you've got a capital gains tax cut, say, or tax rate, say, of 28%, but you cut it to 14%, which it's been before, but it's only a temporary 4 or 5 years. Yeah. I mean, you'll have a little small, but nobody's going to commit the resources to invest in either housings or businesses or whatever it is, if they're looking at that tax rate going back up, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm all for a permanent tax cut. Do it, and increases revenue to the Treasury to start with.
Well, what about this now? So this is a little different perspective, because I was just thinking while you were talking. So, I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of families who, and kind of the people that I'm involved with through my work, that really struggle to meet basic needs. Okay, so is there a way to assist those people? Like in the fact, I mean, you can give them a tax cut, right? But like if they're living month to month, and granted, sometimes people put themselves in situations that are doing that and made bad decisions. Other people are just trying to dig out. So is there an opportunity to be able to help them through some type of incremental, like smaller amounts?
Well, the more,
or are you not helping them, and you're just pacifying them with money to get by? Or is there a way to do both?
Well, so the way that America's economy, a free market economy works, it works off of incentives. So if you just hand somebody a check, that check is first of all, it's going to be inefficient to actually do what you're trying to do, which is, you don't want them to be able to be okay with groceries for a month. You want them to financially be able to move from lower class to middle class, or middle class to upper class. You want that upward mobility. And so in order to do that, you've got to set the table with an economy that is doing well for everyone. And that's why tax cuts are so important, because it isn't about a rich guy gets more in his bank account. It is so that those with money and wealth, or even middle class, that they've got a dream to start a small business. If the tax burden comes down, then they're going to be incentivized to put their money at risk and hire people and produce a good or service or whatever it is. So there you have that. And the second thing that we've had huge pressure on is inflation. So we've got eggs that are $6, $7, $8. I mean, just ridiculous costs. So for inflation to come down, the government has to stop printing money.
Yeah.
The value of the dollar we're losing it every year, because they're handing out rebate checks, which is part of it, but I mean, they just printed money during COVID. We're just going to shut the economy down, and then we're just going to print a bunch of money, and we're going to call it the American Recovery Act, and we're going to throw money at these communities, and that is one of the biggest drivers for inflation, why our groceries and our energy and our auto insurance has just gone through the roof. Yeah. So then your folks that are struggling, they're struggling because costs are higher, and they're struggling because the economy is struggling.
Yeah.
And so those two things, if I'm coming from a government position, I'm not helping somebody with writing them a check and handing it to them, because it doesn't actually help them long term.
What about putting it? What about putting those funds, instead of writing? What about putting it towards? Is there some way for the government to? And I don't like the government involved in a lot of things, but like towards driving down food costs.
Well, so this
faster than you would see.
Well, every time the government tries to do that, so the issue is the government can't create anything. They can't create any jobs. All they're doing is they're like a necessary parasite, and they're living off of us, the taxpayers.
Yeah, that's right.
If the hardworking people of America stopped, I mean, the government would go bankrupt. They need people to be able to work. But so basically what the government, the number one thing that the government, the president, the governor, whatever it is, the number one thing that they can do is get out of the way of your businessman, your person that wants to have their own business, somebody that's wanting to invest, a smaller business that wants to expand, all of these things. They don't need subsidies. They don't need grants. They need the federal government, both with regulations, because honestly, unfunded mandates are a tremendous cramp on small businesses. Just, hey, you've got to do this, 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 and this. And it's just all these hoops that these poor guys have to, jump through, and it's not worth it. So the government getting out of the way is the number one most important thing. I mean, there is welfare. If someone needs food stamps, that stuff's always available.
Yeah.
And it should be, I hate to say this, but it should be painful to a certain extent, because we need that incentive to go, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I mean, that's tough love, but it's better than going, oh, I don't want you hurting, so let's subsidize, your food. Let's make sure your housing is subsidized. Let's make sure you don't have any discomfort in the poverty you're living in.
Yeah.
And that's not actually helping them.
Yeah.
So
I think you hit on something really good there. I think one of the big reasons for a lot of the food costs is regulation.
Oh yeah.
And so
healthcare. Healthcare the same way.
And healthcare, yeah. So the regulation to deregulate would immediately start to.
Did you know? I mean, you've probably seen this, but eggs being so high. Did you see the reason for that?
I heard about something in Indiana, but I don't know if that's.
This is absolutely outrageous. On the way out the door, the Biden administration killed 100 to 150 million chickens for no reason.
No reason.
They said, we think there might be bird flu, which there wasn't. They were healthy chickens. So we have a deficit of chickens who are laying eggs right now. Now, the good news is it's temporary, right? Because you can grow more chickens and we'll recover. But on the way out the door, they gave us a nice little
punch in the gut. Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Well, and that's a regulation.
That's unbelievable.
That's a regulation.
It's the government. Yes.
It's
who
them
specifically caused egg prices to double.
Yeah.
Because they messed with supply.
Well, they're just trying to help us.
Yeah, the government, they're trying to help you. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I think of it sometimes from a different angle, just because I do know some people are struggling, but I don't believe. I think like the whole. The best representation of it is tax season.
Yeah.
Because what sells in tax season? Cars.
Right.
TVs.
Right.
PlayStations. Xboxes.
Yeah.
I mean, and so those type of things are what, if somebody gets a check, that's what they go for.
Right.
But is there a way to right the ship a little bit while, I don't know. There's a lot of generational poverty.
Yeah, so think about where we were 100 years ago, and you have some of these businesses were started by young men who found a way to get a shoe shine kit and figure out how to make money on the street and make money shining shoes, and then eventually they were able to hire one of their buddies and they expanded. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, window washing or whatever it is. I mean, that's how America was built, and that's how America is built. I think the biggest and the saddest thing is that this generation feels like if they don't win the lottery, there's no opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is the land of opportunity. This is the place where you don't always succeed. You do not always succeed, but you have the freedom to put yourself out there, to work hard, to hustle, and make it. And it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how poor your family is.
Yeah.
If you have a good or a service that somebody wants and you know how to get that to them, wow, that's really the American dream, and it's honestly it's where we've got to return to, and that's why I think the idea of trade schools and understanding the value of hard work. I love what Mike Rowe does. I think that's where it's not really revolutionary. It's actually returning to what made America great was hard work, ingenuity, the can-do spirit, not being able to take no for an answer and finding ways to get ahead. And it's a little bit like that moth or butterfly in the cocoon. One of the worst things you can do as they're struggling to get out of that cocoon is to cut the opening just a little bit, just to make it a little easier for them. And then what happens is they're not the developed butterfly that they should be, because they need the struggle. And it is important that there's just nobody wants to see anybody on the street. No, we're not. I mean, in America, nobody should be hungry and nobody should be homeless. There's programs for everything. There's charity for everyone. But I think for what you're talking about is someone who's living paycheck to paycheck and is trying to get ahead.
Yes.
And that's where I do think the government can come in, but not with checks and not with rebates and not with, subsidizing whatever, but by releasing the regulations and the oppression basically on.
I think another representation of like the whole tax check thing and how it's spent is something that we see quite a bit in the hospital world, and it's watching that older generation die, and then to see what happens among families when they have to split up somebody's money.
Right.
Because a lot of people have banked on that's going to be my
ship has come in.
The ship is going to come in, and I deserve this. I deserve this amount. And it's super sad to see families break in those times, and it is 100%. It's a sad time. It's a vulnerable time, but it is 100% wrapped around my desire for that money.
Yes.
And I think that everybody has to be guarded in some way. That when that you don't let that situation kind of take over and break relationships. But I think it has a lot.
Right.
And I think when those people that are living paycheck to paycheck or whatever it is, that's like their savior. That's what's going to save them is when Grandpa dies.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just a really sad state that people are in when they're in that kind of realm.
Well, that's a good segue. So we can let's leave the government.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's leave politics just for a minute.
A half hour, 40 minutes of politics.
Yeah. But I want to kind of stay on the same subject a little bit, because I had something when I was reading, spending time with the Lord and reading a couple weeks ago, and you ever have the times where, like, you read the same scripture over and over. You've read this a million times, and something clicks, and you realize something, or you recognize something that you haven't before.
Yeah,
isn't that funny? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've
amazing part of the Bible.
I've spent time in God's Word since I was a little kid, and it's all routinely there's, stuff you just never seen before. So one of the things that I've been contemplating, I've been reading in Proverbs, and one of the things I've been contemplating with Proverbs is just how deep that is, how good the book of Proverbs is. It's so full of wisdom. But there was a verse in there, and it really struck me, and it talked about the difference between the righteous and the wicked with money, with wealth. Mm-hmm. And it said that the wicked basically lay a snare, or they lay a trap, to that's the wicked thing about it. And the righteous, I don't know, something about being diligent or something like that. Yeah. And it hit me that there are two paths to wealth. And a lot of Christians don't understand this. Some do, some don't. But God does want to prosper you. Yeah. Prosperity, it goes hand in hand with righteousness in God's Word. This is not Andrew's opinion. This isn't some televangelist's opinion. It is, and it's not just a bank account. Obviously, prosperity, according to the Word of God, it's health. It's the blessing of the relationships in your life, the blessings of family and children, all these things. I realize that the wicked don't have that. And so what happens? Jimmy, it's kind of like what you're talking about with all those people waiting around for inheritance. They have to catch something. Mm-hmm. The righteous, and I've seen this in my own life. I've never been wealthy, but I have seen, as you make a good decision this year, and then 6 months down the road you make another good decision. You build on these decisions, and you have maybe a decade now of making a righteous decision, whatever it is, living within your means, whatever it is, just one thing after another. That the compounding blessings of wealth and prosperity come into your life. It's like growing a tree. It's like fruit. God talks about in the Christian's life fruit. There's the fruit of the Spirit. Well, those are outgrowths of what's happening in your life. It's not automatic. It's not winning the lottery. It's not having a pile of cash fall on you. It is a lot of times not pretty, and it's not something that's glamorous or that people, hey, look over here, I'm being faithful. When no one's seeing, I'm being faithful. But those are the things that build wealth, because they build wealth of spirit. They build wealth of relationships. And yes, God provides for your needs. He provides for your needs, and you can depend on it. The wicked don't have that. And when I say the wicked, I mean someone who is not following God. They don't have that. So what do they have to do? They have to have the next big thing. That's why they gamble. That's why they're looking for the big deal, because they've got to snag their wealth. Mm-hmm. It isn't fruit. Mm-hmm. It isn't just the natural outgrowth of walking right. And it hit me, and I'm like, that is literally, it's almost like two paths.
Yeah.
That God has the Christian and the righteous on. And we're righteous because of the blood of Jesus. We're righteous. I mean, obviously you do right things, but you're righteous because of Him. You're not right because you're just a good person. You know what I'm saying. And then you've got the way of the world, which is worldly wisdom, and go out there and get all. And the way of the world is greed, and focus is always the money. Mm-hmm. And the money comes to the believer, but as they need it. God provides it. You can trust your Father is going to take care of you. Mm-hmm. As you're walking in obedience to Him, and you're just putting one step after the other. It's kind of a little bit, it's not the same, but it's kind of this mug that I've got this saying, a man's heart, this is Proverbs, a man's heart plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. And I just think I have found that to be true in my life. And that is that I have dreams, and I've got 5-year plans. I'm a big planner. I used to have 5-year plans, and here's where I want to be in 5 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, the word says, hey, that's great. In fact, the man plans his ways. It's all good. But it's God who actually makes the steps happen in your life. And it never is totally exactly what I planned anyway. And sometimes it's totally different than what I planned. But it's always better, and it's always blessed. And that's not to say that we don't have tight financial times. But I almost think that the tight financial times, when you're walking in that path with the Lord, are an opportunity, Jimmy, for you to, as a Christian, to grow in dependence on the Lord and understanding. I mean, I've had to understand my wealth does not come from my paycheck, my phenomenal way of investing, or from winning some lottery that I'm not playing. I mean, that my wealth comes from dependence and trust on the Lord. He will take care of my every need. I don't like it always, because I want to have way more than my need. I mean, I want to have, but I do know that if I am in need, I have every right to go before my Father and say, Father, you said you provided for all my needs according to your riches and glory, which is unlimited. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking you to take care of this need. And I have to tell you, Jimmy, I've been walking with the Lord for a long time. Been married for over 30 years. And we've been really poor, and we've had money, and I have never seen a need that we've had not be met by the Lord.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so I think when you're talking about somebody, if I was to encourage somebody who's stuck in a rut and they can't get out, I would say okay, it's fine to have plans, but why don't you start asking the Lord for your steps?
Yeah.
And trust that as you trust him and you take those steps, that he's going to walk you out of the poverty that you're living in, or the rut, or whatever it is. And because God doesn't want that for you. And here's the thing about what you're talking about, somebody who's oppressed with that and really struggling it's oppressive.
Yeah.
It's not just money. It's oppressive. It's like something sitting on you and you just got no hope. It's like a little hopeless.
Yeah.
And God has hope for you. I mean, God has hope for those folks. And the hope is him. It's not that you're going to get some pile of cash, because if you're still living in that poverty mindset, I mean, we squander those checks. We get that pile of, and he goes right, because we don't know how to hold it.
Yeah.
And the Lord loves to teach you how to hold what he gives you, to be a good steward of it.
Yeah.
So that he can give you more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's
so
my 2
good.
cents.
No, I think well, when you started mentioning that, I thought of the story of where the lady comes in the Bible and she breaks the alabaster box of the super, super expensive perfumes and rubs it on Jesus' feet. And I haven't thought about this before, but I don't know what her background was.
Right.
But it probably wasn't good.
Right.
But she made the choice at that point, I'm going to turn it all over. Yeah. And she was hammered by the religious leaders, right?
Right.
But she probably had made some not great decisions.
Yeah.
But by her honoring him, she was honored.
Yep. Yep.
And she took, I mean, who knows how long it took for her to get that amount, or what she had to do to get that amount. But she was willing at that moment to turn it around.
Yes. Yep.
Because she saw truth.
That's right.
And that's like my encouragement is that if you're stuck in that,
Yep.
just like you said, that one step.
Yep. Absolutely.
That one step that you close your eyes and you say, Lord, just guide this.
Yep.
I'm willing to take this first step.
Yep.
And once I get there, I might stop and ask again before I take the next one.
Yep.
But if in that situation, perfect example of it is her. She busted it all. Yep. And she got beat up, even by the religious people. The people that were supposed to be like, that was amazing. And the Lord honored that.
That's right.
Put it in the Bible as a story to tell anybody that is in a situation like that, to say, you can turn it around right now.
Yep. I agree. No, it's absolutely true. And I think that's the hope, is that no matter what mess you've made.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen folks near bankruptcy and they turn their finances over to the Lord and they start making right decisions, not wrong decisions. And God has rescued them, has helped them to pay off their debts and to avoid bankruptcy and to be able to get in a place of blessing and prosperity. And I mean, I love Dave Ramsey, and everybody's, and I don't want to be critical of Dave Ramsey, but the truth is, even with Dave Ramsey is a man giving his own advice.
Yeah.
Which what he thinks is good advice. Some of it is very good. Some of it, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about scrimping and saving and figuring out how to be on a budget. I'm talking about obeying the Lord on a day-to-day basis and submission of what not just your finances, but everything. Maybe you're not even supposed to be working the job you're working. I mean, maybe it's not even good for your soul what you're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe something needs to shift. Maybe your marriage needs to be put on a different. I mean, you would be surprised at the things you do in obedience to the Lord that click and open up the gates of prosperity or open up blessing. And I mean, you can be doing something that is just. And you don't even realize it if you're not praying and you're not asking the Lord, but you could be doing something that is totally offensive to God and you're not realizing it. And it's something that needs to stop, something that you just need to quit doing. And in obedience, not to try to please him, what is it I'm doing? But I mean, when he speaks that and you're able to put that on the altar, and it can unlock the door. I mean, sometimes just a simple key It's just a simple key.
And then sometimes I really think that when that is repaid, he knows how hard of a decision that is.
Yep.
He knows what you've been through.
Yep.
He knows the times that you've been let down. He knows every one of those things. And I really believe that's paid back with interest.
Yep, absolutely.
Even more than somebody who is a follower
Right.
and who's taken these steps. He knows what kind of decision that is.
Yep. Yep.
He knows what it took you to get you to that point. And that's hopeful, man. That's
well, you
really
think about
hopeful.
the widow with two mites. I mean, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks of where you are or what's happening. The Lord saw her and saw that even she was putting just the tiniest amount in the offering, but the Lord said it was more than anybody else had put in, and it's because it cost her so much.
Yeah.
And he saw her heart.
He rewards that.
Yep.
He rewards it every
absolutely
time.
does.
Every time.
Well, I think we've gabbed for. I didn't even think we had something for tonight. So
Yeah,
it's been so long, so we've been kind of rusty and out of. Listen, Jimmy and I want to thank, bottom of our heart, all the folks that are faithful to watch these videos or
right.
listen to this podcast. You guys make it worthwhile, and we love the feedback. We super appreciate you taking the time to watch and comment, and hopefully you've gotten some good content from this tonight. And we've got an exciting event we're going to in between this podcast and the next one. So hopefully we maybe get to talk about that.
that'd be cool.
The next one, hopefully, maybe we'll see. So we've got an event we're going to that'll be a lot of fun, and hopefully we will be back with you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we're going to double down and just really, because who knows, life just got in the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We appreciate you. Appreciate you watching. Make sure if you have anything you want to send to us, the MC Squared Podcast at gmail.com.
Yep.
The MC Squared Podcast at gmail.com. We both have access to it. Comment in any of the videos. We try to get back to those. Anything you'd like us to talk about, we're open to that
absolutely.
too. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.
yeah, see ya.